Terrific. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session in the Transformation Fund Community of Practice series. As we've said before, one of the key dimensions of the Transformation Fund process is to offer a space like this for campuses to share best practices for how they're using transformation funding to support economic mobility, transfer partnerships, essential student supports, and other topics that align with funded strategies across the system. Today, we're going to focus on essential student supports, and we're thrilled to have the opportunity to hear from some really terrific speakers today who are going to share how their transformation funding helped advance student supports for some of our most at-promise students. And I'll introduce our speakers in just a moment, but first want to thank Jennifer Snyder and Lisa Raposo from the SUNY Center for Professional Development, as well as Julia Lang from our office for all their support and help organizing this practice series. And most especially thank our speakers from the campuses who I will introduce in just a few seconds. We have two presentations for you today. Please do feel free to drop any questions in the chat, which we're going to monitor as we go, but know that we also will have more of an open mic opportunity to ask questions and hear from our presenters at the end of both presentations. So we do plan to leave plenty of time for that at the end. Without further ado, our first speakers are from Alfred State College. Alfred State used a portion of their transformation funding to provide expanded services for underrepresented minorities, first generation, and Pell-eligible students through employment advising and increased engagement. So I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Carrie Coakley, who serves as the Vice President for Academic Affairs at Alfred State. So Dr. Coakley, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Casey. Share here. And everyone can see that? So now you all disappeared. All right.
Yes, you're all set.
Good. So thank you for inviting me to share what we're doing at Alfred State. For those of you who may not be familiar with exactly where we're located, we are in the southwestern part of New York State, very rural environment. In the village that we are situated in Alfred, you have Alfred State, Alfred University, and then the SUNY Alfred College of Ceramics. So there's three institutions in one village. Our students make up about 85% of that population among those three schools. And so we have found for all of our students challenges around employment, transportation, kind of getting those essential services that students need. And we saw an opportunity to use transformational funds to start to get them access. So our focus at our institution, we looked at our BIPOC student population, our Pell-eligible students, and our first generation students. And those three populations on our campus make up about a third of our student population. And then as Casey said, we focused on advising, student employment, and student engagement. And so I'll sort of cover each of those a little bit. So first, what were our success measures? How do we know if we're going to be successful? We looked at our fall 2021 baseline, and we're looking at 5% increases in both enrollment as well as retention. So in fall of 21, we had about 27% of our cohort were in a population that identified as BIPOC, with 64% retention, about 46, so almost half the cohort is Pell eligible, and then another 28% were first generation. For academic advising, we had some funding through a Title III grant that allowed us to start an academic advising center in our Student Success Center, so centrally located on campus, professional advisors, but then we also, on top of that, have a faculty advising model. So students, for the most part, are advised by their faculty member in their discipline, would go to the advising center for kind of general walk-in advice if maybe they're advisors in class and they need some advice. But then we intentionally assigned those professional advisors to students in our EDGE program, which is kind of our version of EOP for students who wouldn't qualify for EOP. So they are historically students, usually from the New York City area, identify as students of color, oftentimes have financial need and could benefit from a bridge program. So we bring them in early to work with our academic advisors just a couple days ahead of the start of the semester. So it's not a full bridge, but kind of to orient them, give them some advising information. And then those professional advisors are working with them throughout their first year. After their first year, they get assigned to a faculty advisor. And so the transformation funding allowed us to continue supporting those advisors to stay on staff after the Title III funds ended. We also have our director of the BIPOC Scholars Program. So again, this was funded originally through some other SUNY funds that we had. We are just in our second year with that program. So we have a director. It at the moment is an opt-in program. So students receive information about it over the summer. And then when they're onboarding through our orientation program, and then once they get here. Last year, we had about 49 students who elected to go into what we call the Brother to Brother program. And this is for male students of color. They are paired up with a peer mentor as well as a professional mentor. So this could be somebody on our professional staff, or we tend to tap into our alums as well to partner with these male students to talk about what are their career goals, what do they need sort of in terms of life skills. So we do some financial planning with them, academic goal setting, social events. So students get to know each other because oftentimes they're coming from quite a distance to join our campus, and sort of developing that community. This year, we have about 39 students who have elected into that program, and then we're also going to expand it to our female students and do a sister-to-sister program as well. For student employment, because we are such a small village in a rural area, our students may or may not have transportation. Sometimes it's hard for them to get off campus to find employment, and many of our students need to work in order to kind of supplement what they need to pay for college. And so we used our funds to create some additional student employment opportunities. Many of those are within our Student Success Center. So we have some embedded lab support assistance where it's a student who has already taken the course. They're now in the course with the students and the teacher every single day to offer that additional kind of supplemental instruction to the students as sort of a tutor, but within the course. We've also added some additional peer tutoring, and this was specifically for our courses where we had high DFW rates. So where we had those, we infused peer tutoring. We made sure that both the students and the faculty knew of those tutoring supports. And then we also looked at where could we have sort of high engagement areas. And for our campus, it's athletics, admissions, and our student engagement, student affairs area. So gave those areas some additional employment lines for students where it's kind of high quality student employment where they're interacting with other students, other staff, potentially faculty, and really sort of engaging them and making students feel like they're a part of the campus. And then we have mentors for both our underserved populations through the BIPOC Scholars Program, as well as in our academic departments that have lags in retention. For our student engagement through academic travel, again, we had challenges getting our students to conferences, hands-on learning outside of their classrooms. And so we were able to use the funds to develop an academic travel fund. Some of the things that students have been able to do through that fund, it's mostly us funding buses for them to get there, but sometimes it's admissions fees, hotels, that kind of thing. But our sports management students, we had 70 last year in that major who were working at all of the Buffalo Bills homes games. So they went up, they're considered part of the Bills organization. They have that for their resume. Our ag students went to a dairy judging competition. Our architecture students were able to visit some cities and apply what they were learning in their classes. Marketing went to Ad Week. And our medical students were able to go to a museum. So lots of different kinds of opportunities. Some of them are more employment-based. Some of them are more major-based. And here's some of their their little pictures from their trips. This year, we're again engaged with the Buffalo Bills, and I think have equally numbers, 70 to 100, that are able to go there and work those games as part of their major. And so how are we doing? So I would say we have half success so far. We have definitely exceeded our enrollment goals. So we've seen an increase of 34.5% in our BIPOC student population from that fall 21 baseline to this fall. We have seen a 38% increase in Pell-eligible students and then a 26% increase in first-generation enrollment. Given these bigger numbers in each of these populations, we have not done as well on retaining those students. So as we're digging into that data, it seems to be where the retention lags are. It's mostly in our bachelor's seeking students. Our associate's degree seeking student retention is actually up. But overall, we have an 8% decrease in the BIPOC retention. So we'll be working with that BIPOC director this year to kind of drill into that data and see what additional supports we can put into place. Pell and first gen are not as drastic, so a 2% and a 1% decrease. And again, we've done some additional things this semester around employment and intervention around gap funding and those sorts of things to help fund those two populations. And so we'll continue to work on that. And then some successes, they weren't in our success metrics, but they're things that we see as successes. So we did see increased achievement in those high DFW classes. So where we had the embedded lab instructors, the tutors, we actually saw a 10% decrease in DFW classes. So when we looked from fall to fall, 10% less on the DFW list. So for us, that's a pretty big win. And then we continue to offer those supports this semester to try to get that number down even further. We've had increases in the number of students participating in professional conferences and research presentations. So oftentimes as a tech sector school, students don't necessarily think about research as an option for them. And I think through those travel funds and other student funding, they're able to kind of think about how they could do research or professional development within their major as a student. And then we have seen increases enrollment-wise in our non-traditional student populations. So not just the underserved populations, but also more female students going into the trades, adult students coming back. And so I think the things that we're doing to support those three underserved populations are also helping to draw additional students into our programs who may not have considered it before. And then lastly, our next steps, we're, as I said, going to further analyze our data related to those drops in retention and identify how we can, in this academic year, use those transformational funds to impact positive changes in retention. We are looking at a new FYE course to engage students. So this will start in the second half of this semester. So the second 7 weeks, it's going to be called My Time. And it will be co-taught by our president and a staff member, kind of around those principles of academic success, goal setting, how do you engage in our campus community as a way to help target those three underserved populations and get students connected in different ways to our campus. We're looking at additional peer mentors for our underserved populations, and then looking at how we can develop additional programs and opportunities beyond just the BIPOC scholars, brother to brother, sister to sister, for our underserved populations. So I will stop there.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Coakley. What questions do folks have? Please feel free to raise your hand or drop something in the chat. We probably have a few minutes before we turn it over to our next speaker, but we'll create some time at the end as well. Well, I'll offer a comment. I think having a first-year experience course, My Time, I love the name of it, a first-year experience course taught by the president, that's very special. It's certainly unique. I'm not sure if any other campuses have accomplished this, but I'm sure they'd love to. So something like that sounds amazing. And hearing about your efforts to try and bring those retention rates back up, understanding that there's things outside of academics that could be contributing to that drop in retention, because having an increase in success in DFW courses is certainly something to brag about, and that's really exciting, and clearly that's been effective on the academic side. So pleased to hear about that. Any questions? If not just yet, make note of them, and we can address them at the end.
There's a question.
Ask a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
ahead.
Who's first? I apologize.
Go ahead, Aaron, and then
Okay,
we'll.
great. So thank you very much. All of this is really great information, and we have here at Fredonia been working with peer tutors for a long time, and I do appreciate the idea of having the campus recognize opportunities for students to be employed in high quality, high touch, right, opportunities, and was interested a bit in the additional peer tutoring, kind of like supplemental instruction that's happening right in the classroom there. And if you could speak a bit to the preparation for that, the training, if it was an extension of something you're currently doing, just training your regular tutoring center students, or if there was something additional involved.
So they would go through our regular training for all tutors. But I think the in-class tutors are obviously a little bit different because they're in there alongside of the faculty. So in addition to being trained by our Student Success Center folks who oversee the tutoring, they also meet once a week with the faculty member to go over sort of, here's what the lab is going to be this week. Here are the ways that you could support students. That student is also feeding back to the faculty, because I'm sure this is true on all your campuses as well. Sometimes students are afraid to tell faculty, like, I'm not getting this concept, or I don't get this thing. So the embedded person is hearing those conversations as they're walking around trying to assist the students with maybe lab work or things that they're working on in class. They can then feed that information back to the faculty. Like, I got a lot of questions about this today. Faculty can then sort of circle that back into the class to say, like, it sounds like we might not be so clear on this concept, and let's go over it again. So they're trained both by the faculty member in their discipline as well as just the regular peer tutoring that we do. I think eventually we'll look for our peer tutors to get them kind of certified through a national peer tutoring training. Because I think a lot of times our students, they're not familiar with what tutoring is. So they just show up at a tutoring session, like, give me the answers, and don't know that they should really sort of be coming with questions, and that the tutor's responsibility is not to teach them everything over again that they learned in class, but to help them answer questions and sort of be curious and understand the material. So a little bit different with the embedded tutors, and that they're also working with the faculty on what the faculty member needs them to know for the class.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the answer. I think sometimes we struggle with finding the right student at the right time because their schedules are so busy, right? So also, on a side note there in the chat, if you have any recommendations on how those partnerships with, or if there's any new thoughts or something surprising to you about how to attract students to do that or find the right matches a little bit more successfully, I'd really be open to that information.
Yeah. I mean, mostly we go through recommendations from faculty. We also have sort of looked through who did well in a class or multiple classes, and then we tap them specifically and say, like, you've been recommended because you did so well in the classes. And that sometimes works, but we have the same challenge that sometimes we don't have the right person at the right time or the right discipline that can do that.
It's great. So I think we'll just address Elizabeth's question in the chat, and then we'll hand it off to the Brockport folks. But Elizabeth's question is, the funding for the on-campus employment, did it come from federal work study sources, from the department, or the Transformation Fund?
All of it. So we have regular work study dollars plus our institutional funds for student employment. And then we used a chunk out of the Transformation Fund to provide additional non-work study opportunities on campus. We're also looking at on our campus, sometimes things are posted as a work study job or a non-work study job. And we have found that if a student posted as work study, student doesn't want to do it, but they don't have work study, that's posing challenges. So we're looking at how can we post just all jobs, and then whatever the student qualifies for, that's what bucket we take it out of, without sort of targeting some as work study and some not as work study, to help students maximize their employment on campus. But coming from all of those buckets. So stuff we already had, plus the transformation funds.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Coakley. That was terrific. And if we have other questions, we'll get to it at the end. But now I'm pleased to hand it off to our next presenters from SUNY Brockport, and they'll be sharing with us hopefully a little bit more about the kickball tournament that they're having on campus, which sounds incredibly exciting. But of course, primarily talk to us about a program that supports the engagement and persistence of men of color, which they call their Talon Academy, as well as their development of a veterans program and enhanced transfer support services. So I'm pleased to welcome the presenters from SUNY Brockport. We have Dr. Sara Kelly, Vice President for Enrollment Management, Dr. Janice Slade, Assistant Director of Talon Academy and Success Initiatives, Dr. Thomas Chu, Director of New Student and Transition Programs. So folks from SUNY Brockport, take it away.
Great, thank you, Casey. And yes, we can answer any kickball questions at the end. I'm Sara Kelly, as Casey mentioned, the Vice President for Enrollment Management, and I have the honor of just kicking off our session today. You're going to hear from Dr. Slade and Thomas soon, but I just wanted to echo some of the comments that Carrie made about how important the SUNY transformation funding has been for us to elevate and invest further in these programs. And they're really focused on the leadership development, engagement, and success of our priority populations. So without further ado, I'm going to let Thomas and Janae really showcase the great work that they're doing.
Right. Screen. And there we go. Does that look good to everybody?
Yep.
Great. I'll kick us off again. My name is Thomas Chu. I'm very happy to be here and very happy to be presenting on this information, especially with Janae. So Sara said it perfectly. This is enhancing and investing for us. We have a history with some of these programs, but these funds have really allowed us to take where we were and look at where the future could go. So for transfer and veteran support, our investments are a coordinator role, a role that we've really needed to bring all of our ideas together, a lot of marketing with the local community colleges and here on campus for engagement, community college partnership expansion. We're spending more time on our community college feeder campuses, our processes and articulation. We found that the faster that we can get our transfer student population a schedule, the more likely they are and more confident they are to transition to Brockport. And then in advancing our welcome and engagement programs, our transferred Golden Eagle orientation program, we've really invested in our accepted students days, spending more time specifically looking at transferred veteran students and saying, hey, you haven't started yet, but we're here for you. This is a network that we're developing together. On the other side, the Talon Academy expansion, Talon Academy has been around for 4 years in different smaller iterations. Having the ability through these funds to hire Dr. Slade as our assistant director running Talon Academy, and again, program development. What does Talon Academy look like? She'll get into that in a little bit. Marketing for this program so people know what it is. Having student engagement funds and ideals ready to present and so that students can get excited about. And something that Janae's done a really great job with is community partners, on-campus community partnerships with other local colleges, other folks doing this kind of work. And these funds have really allowed us to focus on that. Our goals with the investment funds are really closing the gap, increase student retention wherever we can. We track this holistically for the institution, and over the years, Dr. Kelly's done a really great job at helping us identify the cohorts of students that we really need to start making advanced measures with. We know that these students need support. Talon Academy is that, our veteran students, our transfer students, these are all cohorts that fall into that. Through that, we want to establish a sense of belonging and identity, collaborate more closely with our partner institutions to build those relationships for the sake of our students. We have historically underrepresented students who don't persist at the same rate as other students. And so how can we recognize that in a strengths-based way to show how they can thrive and to help them thrive towards a degree and degree completion, walking across that graduation stage. And lastly is visibility and accessibility to the supports. We have so many supports on campus. These funds have helped us with marketing and with information sharing, that they know, that all of our students know, especially these students that we're trying to close these gaps with, that these supports are for you. And so we're really excited about that part. I'm trying to zip right along because I want to get to the point where Janae is talking more than I am. So I'm going to talk about transfer and veteran support. This is network building. We know transfer students and veteran students don't always identify as a student group that wants to hang out with each other. So it's the broader network of transitional support that we want to make sure that they have. So through our coordinator in this area, we're trying to learn what students want. What will they actually show up for? What do they feel like they need that they're not getting in their onboarding? The timeline to hiring and using these funds was one of our challenges that we saw, with all these great ideas, but not a person with the time to really focus on it. So the coordinator has been wonderful with that. And then balancing the various needs. Our relationship with MCC is different than our relationship with FLCC and GCC, and the needs of each campus is different. So learning those needs and what those students need as they transition from their community college to Brockport has been really interesting. We had relationships with those areas, but we're increasing relationships with those areas. And then my last slide for a minute, I promise, is for transfer and veteran support. We have some points of pride, things that we've been able to accomplish. We have collaborated with our faculty advisors for better onboarding. We hired some extra faculty in the summer to transfer credit articulation went a lot faster, better one-on-one support. Our time to registration after deposit was much faster this year than it has been in the past. Our marketing for orientation, our communication for orientation, and along with our programs, we really invested in, and then our results were really positive. We had a 9% increase in orientation participation from transfer students, which was really great. And then of the students that filled out our form, 92.5% said that they loved the program and the information, and specifically time with their peers. 65% on quality of information said was a 5 out of 5, and 70% was a 5 out of 5 for time with peers, which we're very proud of and very happy about. 6% increase in transfer and readmit registration. Our registration numbers for our current students went up. Our persistence for our transfer students went up. And then the programming led to significant increase in recruitment and engagement. We were able to do some on-campus tabling last spring that we've never done before, where we really invested in that beyond just our admissions person being there. We sent our coordinator there. We're working on sending some faculty there. So we're trying to work with our partners to really build this network and this transitional support system. All right.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Thomas. So I just want to interject that, first of all, I'm very proud to do the work to support our men of color and our first generation programs. It has been a lot of success, but there's also been a lot of challenges building a community, but I'm very proud to say that since our first kickoff meeting, every single engagement we've seen students continue to participate. But on the other side of that, we also see that, being that this position was open for a while, for 6 months, there was some missed opportunities, right, to allow students to understand what is Talon Academy. And so at every opportunity I get to partner with ROTC and EOP and athletics, getting them to understand that Talon is a place where you're going to gain a sense of identity, community, and personal development. And so in addition, there's been some lack of awareness and in terms of engagement. And so it's been a pleasure and an honor to be able to make sure that talent is revived. And, those students who want to participate in our programs, they have a sense of brotherhood and collaboration. And so I look forward to next steps and what's ahead for Talon Academy and first generation success. All right, so other points of pride include, as I stated, those 3 initiatives. I've been connecting with all of our campus partners so that they understand across faculty and staff and students where they're going to get that sense of identity, community, and development. And so at every single event you're looking at here is the Welcome Back Social. There was almost close to 20 students who attended this event. And so we've been able to track those students. We want to make sure that every single student that participates in our programs, we know where they are academically, where are they? And so we can retain those students and make sure that they have a sense of belonging and that they persist. And even through the unknown in the spring, talent has remained just flourishing. We've had 30 students that participated in programming, even when I wasn't here, and 96.5% of those participants, they all persisted through the fall, and the one that didn't, they actually graduated. So we know that talent, what we're doing here is continuing to be a support, and it's helping them academically as well. And so I'm also very proud of, some of our consistent partnerships across campus, and everyone has been willing, if they support a captive audience of our men of color, they have been more than willing to participate. And I'm very proud to build those relationships.
Now the future, next steps. Transferring veterans, we have a full schedule planned. Having the time to build this space has been wonderful. We have over 18 planned visits with our partnering with our undergraduate admissions at the different campuses, both tabling and events like we talked about. On campus, we're working with our veteran students, and we're working with our transfer peer mentors to celebrate the cohorts. We believe that celebration is an important part of building communities. So how, like I said, learning what they want, but learning how to recognize their achievements with students at the center of that. And then on our on-campus programming and partnership, we're working with our Center for Excellence Learning and Teaching to do some training events on how veterans specifically work in the classroom and how consistent information we're learning about our transfer population as well. We want to bring all this to our faculty and staff, but we also want to bring info to our students. So having outside speakers come and table in our union and be available so that these students know that they're seen and that there's info here for them.
All right. And so Talon's future looks definitely very, very bright. We have an exciting event coming up on Saturday. We are inviting a speaker coming in to talk to our young men about what masculinity redefined looks like, and connecting with all these organizations to make sure that collaboration and those connections will allow talent to grow. And so we've also been able to partner with Dr. Baike over at the U of R are. He's going to be coming in to do a first generation keynote speech and to talk about what his challenges was as a first generation college student and as a Brockport alumni. And so we're very excited about that. We're also doing a Life After Athletics series to support our basketball team with programming to help them understand and develop a sense of identity beyond the basketball court. And with that support, we want to make sure that they continue to get that holistic support that they need. And so with even this transformational fund, we've been able to set aside funds to do a recognition and celebration ceremony so that they know just by participating in our programs throughout the whole semester, this is what you're worthy of being celebrated. You're worthy of making sure that you have that sense of identity, community, and development at the end of the school year. So we're looking forward to next steps.
We're clearly very excited about all of this. We feel, genuinely really thankful, so thankful for these opportunities. And Janae has done such a great job hitting the ground running. And so, much thanks to her and Dr. Kelly for all their support. And now it's our turn for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Questions for our folks from Brockport.
Hi, this question is for Janae. I'm Christina from SUNY Erie in Buffalo. I
Hi.
wanted to ask about building the community for Talon, how you were able to generate some excitement, some clarity on what Talon is, and how you got through that initial building.
That's a great question. I think, anytime there is opportunity to build trust and build relationship, Thomas he'll testify that I'm always asking, hey, can I leave the office to go to the eligibility meeting? I need to talk to the football team. I need to talk to the basketball team. I need to make sure that I'm in front of them. And every time I speak, I think you build a sense of awareness of what you're going to benefit if you participate in the programs. And so it's those specific touch points when you meet with students and they're like, wow, she's coming to my class. She's coming to my game. She's coming to see what I need. I think that helps to build community. And then you get an opportunity to get to know them. And so, I stay from the beginning until the very end of those meetings, and it's a sacrifice. But I believe students know that you're going above and beyond outside of your 9 to 5 to build those relationships and to share those programs. A lot of our programming is sometimes it's on the weekend, sometimes it's after hours. And so making sure during that time I spend quality time in those memories, I think that calls everyone to have that sense of community over time.
I'll just chime in too. Janae has done a tremendous job building the network. And then when that network grows, even with her relationship with students, they tell other students and other students tell other students. So it really spreads. The dynamic engagement and the genuine care for the students is really infectious. And that's helped us get more and more students involved since Dr. Slade has joined us.
Yeah, and I also too want to also add that, EOP, our partnership has been very effective. They have a group of students that they're actually required to attend and engage. And, through that relationship that has built a sense of like solid, consistent community and engagement. And so I hope that we can continue to do that with some of our other partnerships as well.
I'll say one more nice thing about Dr. Slade is we also have a graduate diversity fellow. His name's Kamani, and we use some of these funds to have him help over the summer with program planning. And Janae does a great job Kamani's part of the team. He's a professional. He's a graduate student, but he is one of the faces of Talon Academy. He is out there with students. He's a Brockport alum, and now he's a graduate student, so he knows a lot of students, and he She trusts him, and he deserves that trust because he's really great, but she helps support him in spreading these messages and like gives him a lot of leeway to represent Talon Academy and represent the office and be like, hey, that you should do these things. And that's a huge part of it.
Other questions? It sounds like the secret sauce for Talon Academy especially is exactly what you said, Janae, getting out in front of the students as much as possible, using every opportunity to share just how valuable the program can be for them. And also hearing too about kind of that public-private partnership, having the University of Rochester, someone from their comments speak. I know that, you know, U of R is only a stone's throw away, maybe 20 minutes from Brockport. So
Right.
other SUNY campuses that have, you know, private institutions nearby, you know, leverage those relationships that you have to make the best of it. Other questions? Well, I do want to thank our folks at SUNY Brockport. So at this time, I think we can open the floor. So if you'd like to reignite questions for Alfred State, that's fine here too. But also SUNY Brockport's available to answer any questions. So I'll give some folks a few minutes just to put their minds together and see what other thoughts you might have. Well, what I also am is not one who's a stranger or averse to ending meetings a little early, especially these days in this early in the semester. I understand how busy everyone is. So we are recording this session. We will send it out to those who were unable to attend. But as a reminder, we do have 2 more sessions scheduled for this semester and are in the process of scheduling one for December. But on October 17th, we'll be hearing from SUNY Ulster and SUNY Morrisville to talk about the creation of a Student Navigation and Alliance Center, also using the Ruffalo Noel Levitt survey inventory to drive retention and student success. I know a lot of our campuses use that survey as well. On November 7th, we're going to hear from Herkimer Community College and SUNY Oneonta to talk about the creation of a Refresh and Restart program and their Heritage Language Institute. And finally, for housekeeping, there will be an evaluation for today's session. So we hope you take a few moments to respond to that so we can continue to build programming that you're all most interested in. And once again, just a huge thank you to our presenters today from Brockport and Alfred State. Thank you so much for taking the time, and just want to thank everyone else for attending and hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Take care.